All right, here we go. Episode 5, special guest Charlie Saffro, and today's hot topic is all things talent. One of the more controversial conversations I've had in the last handful of months is about what AI and technology is going to do to sales, and I'll drop some quick stats on you and where I think this will end up, and then we have a very eventful conversation with Charlie. Today in logistics and in logistics sales is roughly about 90,000 salespeople and about 9,000 sales managers. In 5 years from right now, there's some estimates that that number will be closer to 50,000 and 4,000 sales managers. So what does the future look like for sales when it comes to talent, one of the greatest variables in all of the sales process? So happy to have Charlie, and let's get into it.
So, Charlie, one of the questions I have just to start out right away with you is when I think about being a rep, I'm just sick and tired of like the same old, same old. The grind's there. My company's kind of grinding on me. My manager might be grinding on me. I'm ready for out. So if I start to think about, do I have the right skills and talent to like upgrade, right? Whether it's comp, performance, whatever the upgrade might be, like I'm looking for that as a rep. What are companies looking for today? And how do I evaluate whether I might be able to get that upgrade that I'm looking for?
Yeah, I mean, good news for you. You are in high demand if you are a salesperson. The demand is not always realistic. So I'll share just a little bit about what we're hearing from hiring companies in terms of what they want. And this is very consistent. I've been doing this for 20 years. I cannot remember a year or a season where there weren't companies out there that all wanted to hire this profile of a hunter, of a revenue producer, of someone who wants to eat what they kill, but most importantly, someone that's going to generate an ROI. So you guys have all been in these positions. Like, you know, the reality of making a move and what that entails. Every company out there wants the same profile. And this is brokerages, these are asset providers, these are SaaS providers, equipment companies, consultants, anyone who is in this industry that wants to grow, wants a salesperson. The most common ask is, I want someone who is working at a competitor. They have sold this product to the same ICP before. They have a Rolodex. They have an active book of business, and they don't have a non-compete or non-solicit. So that's usually where we start advising. The first few asks are feasible. Like, we can find people, we understand the market very well. So you tell me what you do, what you sell, who you sell it to. I can immediately imagine and start this mental list of all the companies that you're competing with that we would potentially target talent from. But when you start to think about someone who truly is going to bring over a book of business, you've now narrowed down your talent pool. And then when you layer on this, no non-compete, no non-solicit, you've really narrowed it down. So Dan, I think you just said there's 90,000 sellers in this industry. That's our pool. And then you say, I want someone who's only from a direct competitor. So let's just say you sell only LTL. Like, here's your talent pool now. Now you want someone who has a book of business, who doesn't have a non-compete. And then we haven't even talked about other skill sets or compensation or location. So it's a supply and demand game. I mean, that is what hiring and recruiting is all about. And it's managing expectations. So I just laid out the perfect profile, which I think we all can, agree is a bit of a unicorn. But I'm happy to elaborate in any of those areas if you want to dig deeper.
I like the myth of like bringing your book of business. And I've been hearing this since like the beginning of time. I've been personally hearing it for 20 years, and my grandfather was selling regional transportation solutions 60 years ago, and they were getting people for their book of business. So like, I'd be curious on like how much does that really come to fruition, because I've probably 0 for 16 on it right now, probably even worse.
And I know you're like a killer salesperson. And if you can't do it, it's not because you're not capable. You're decent. Okay. It's not because you're not capable. It's because you're ethical. You don't want to get sued. And you also understand that there are different, hoops. Like, you're not going to make a client all of a sudden, like, you left a company on Friday, you start a new company on Monday. That's not possible for them to all of a sudden start moving high volumes of freight with your new employer just because you made the move. It is a slow burn. It is a long sales process. So it's very unrealistic. And that's usually the question I pose back to our clients is, most of these hiring managers and executives are salespeople. So if you left today, could you bring a book of business? And how many of your hires in the past truly lived up to these expectations? And it's usually zero. So you got to take those steps back and think about the soft skills and then the hard skills. Hard skills are technical. How have you been trained to sell? What is your process? It might be something that is, a 5-step process that is universal. It might be something that you learned at an employer that was proprietary, or something that you just made up. It's your style of selling. But I think that is probably your most valuable asset. This is my approach. This is how I build relationships. It's also like, what is your knowledge of the service offering? How do you get to these ICPs? Are you someone who needs a list on day one, who only wants to work current house accounts and grow them? Or are you going to be able to get creative and start reaching out and get responses because of your knowledge, because of your connections, or, you've got that own, your own strategy there. Soft skills are incredibly important for salespeople. That's your personality. And it's things that are innate and you're born with and you develop over time. So are you a hustler? Are you aggressive? Are you assertive? Not always things that you want in a salesperson. You might be looking for someone who is, agile and, open to change, someone who really prioritizes relationships before they get into selling. So those are all the things, like, as a, potential candidate, you need to be thinking about. Another thing that we talk about a lot when we're, talking about any sort of sales talent is, are you an independent contributor, or do you have aspirations to move up into leadership and management? Two very different paths and two very different profiles for someone to hire. And especially in like that person's, a sweet spot of someone's career, let's call it like 3 to 6 years. You've sold. You're an independent contributor. You can do it. The question is, do you want to keep doing that? Because we all know that's probably where the most, money and earnings is going to live. Or do you want to be a team lead and a manager and a director and keep climbing that leadership ladder? Neither way is wrong, but it's not always going to fit what the hiring companies are looking for. And like Dan said in the beginning, there's a lot more openings for independent contributors than there are supervisors, managers, leadership, and that's just going to keep decreasing. So that's the story of what's out there and how you should be thinking. And again, we haven't even gotten to some of the other, pieces of criteria, compensation, location, all very important in someone's search.
What is the state of the market today, Charlie, in terms of supply and demand? Like, is it a candidate's market?
It's coming back. We, have all had a bumpy few years. And again,
4-year freight recession.
Yeah, 4 years, exactly. But the crazy thing is that even in that recession, everyone still wanted to hire sales reps. And so that is, it's an asset to have that type of background and to want to sell, to want to be in this industry. We're starting to see some optimism and, a comeback with operational roles. This is probably the first year since 2022 that we're seeing a demand for carrier reps, just as one example, which is an indicator that the freight is there. So that's great news. Even for salespeople, you are now joining a company. If they're hiring sales and carriers, customer sales and carrier sales, the carrier sales is usually because there is a need, there is business, or there's, an RFP that's about to be won. It also tells you as a salesperson that you're going to get support. We didn't really talk about that, but that's another thing to think about is there's still a lot of companies in this industry that operate cradle to grave, and everyone defines sales differently. So as an employee and a candidate, are you just looking to prospect and close and hunt? Are you looking to hunt and farm? Or are you looking to hunt, farm, and move freight? Because all of those are 3 totally different roles. And there are so many companies that all call it account executive or business development rep or sales, professional.
Executive.
Sales executive. But it's like, what do you want to do? And I think that's an important piece of starting a search. Like, you've got to find companies that have that model. Some companies have flexibility to build a team around you, but that's not always the case.
So I've got a unique question. If I were to use an interview process like a test drive for the company I'm going to go and work for, give me like what you think is a really good interview process. You'd be like, yeah, this all signs point to well thought out, well done, and give me the train wreck scenario where it's like run fast because you're in a spin cycle and you should
Don't
never.
stop.
Yeah, like so. Help a person go like, okay, I'm in this interview process, and where is it like red flags and where is it like green lights? Where would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think before you get to the interview process, you have to think about a lot of the things we talked about. Do you want to be an independent contributor? Do you want to sell, or do you want to sell and farm and all that? You also have to think about where you came from, because there's a dual mentality there. You know, you guys all came from one of the biggest brokerages in the world, and there is this perception from small to mid-sized brokerages, and I think this is universal. I'm just focusing on brokerages because obviously that's where we're all playing. But there's a perception that like, oh, Dan came from C.H. Robinson. He's probably so spoiled. He's had so many resources. He's had these, teams that support him. He's had, this luxury of only being able to prospect and close. That's not our company. Our company, needs someone who is going to, think out of the box. We don't even have a CRM or, a TMS. And I think it goes both ways. I think it comes down to you as the employee, like, what do you want? Because you go into another large company, there's a lot of accounts you can't touch. But if you have unique relationships and you can build unique relationships, maybe that doesn't matter. And maybe for you, a smaller company is, your vision, because it's a wide open field and it's going to be so easy. You really have to think about like that internal competition that is not talked about a lot. So you guys get what I'm saying there. Like you go to another big company, you're now competing with all your peers because they own these accounts, versus you go to a smaller company where, two people have been selling for the last 20 years. You've got a much, more open opportunity to sell. Those are the questions. Those are what you need to think about before you start applying. You get into the interview. I think one of the first questions is, how do you define this position that I'm interviewing for? And you have to really engage in that conversation, because the job description and the title aren't always going to tell you what is really under the hood. And I think those are some of the things. It's like, is this, again, not to be repetitive, but hunter, farmer, cradle to grave. If you want to move up, you got to ask, like, what is the path to getting into leadership and management? And is that something that's well received here? Or are you looking for someone like me to just come in and hunt for my entire time here? I think you ask about their current sales team, their processes, why people are still there selling, why people have left. Ask about the comp plan. How often does the comp plan change? That's a big reason that people leave sales positions, is because, they're performing under one plan and then it changes overnight and now they're going to get half their earnings. I think you have to ask about the resources. What may be important to you all might not be important to them or even on their radar. So something as simple as like, will I have a subscription to Sales Intel, or will I have LinkedIn Sales Navigator, or do you already have a list of idle accounts that you're expecting me to penetrate? And then I think a topic that you guys are probably all incredibly passionate about, that is not really on the radar as much as it should be, is, what is the marketing support? Like, you can sell so much outbound, but there's got to be some inbound, opportunity for you. And is that your job as a salesperson to create that? Or are there systems or partners that are going to set that up so you can really be successful? So I just gave you a lot, and I could keep going. There are so many more things, but I'll stop if you guys want to elaborate on anything.
No, we're just all anti-marketing. So like when you say, oh, you're passionate about it, like I would tell you, all of us are like, we've never experienced a marketing organization that drive inbound leads. So like, I don't know what that is.
In our first podcast, I said I was still waiting for my first good lead from marketing 20 years later.
Okay, but that's what you're doing now. Like you.
Yeah, I agree with you. So like a couple of things that you said that I thought were super interesting. On the marketing perspective, for me, it's been less about like marketing sending me leads and hoping that I get leads from marketing. It's more around the brand awareness of the company.
Brand. Absolutely.
And I remember 20-ish years ago calling from C.H. Robinson. There were people that still didn't know who we were, and I thought that was fascinating. And that obviously like changed over time. And I've mostly been at companies with a fair fairly strong brand recognition. So I think there's something to be said about branding and marketing and not necessarily just waiting for leads to come your way. Because I will tell you, I've seen some sales forces that wait for inbound leads, and guess what? They're just sitting around. And
Good
the other
point.
thing that you said also that cracked me up a little bit, you said I came from a brokerage. I didn't realize I was a broker until I actually left C.H. Robinson. Maybe because we lived in a bubble for so many years, like I didn't think I was a broker until I showed up at a different location, and they're like, "Oh yeah, biggest brokerage." I was like, you think that's a brokerage? Like we do a lot more than just one load, one customer profile.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
you hit it on it.
3PL, 4PL, what would you have called it? What did you think you did?
Supply chain.
Supply chain.
I work for a
chain
transportation company.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, it might have been because the first couple of years I was there, we had a huge campaign that called ourselves Beyond Brokerage. So maybe that brainwashed myself out of the thought process that I was a broker. But I always thought because I had 4 or 5 different modes plus technology to sell that I wasn't just a broker.
Yeah,
but
I'm talking low hanging fruit. I know what you guys did, and I understand like the scope of the sell, but I'm just talking,
well, it's to your point of knowing what you have to sell too, though, because like I show up at a different place and brokerage meant just one mode of transportation. And like I was brokering other modes of transportation. So I just assumed they all were the same.
Yeah. And I would say the market does not think like that. They're thinking brokerage is just when there is a liaison, a middleman or a middlewoman involved in
margin to be made.
Moving the freight.
Going back to this too, I think the industry has a huge problem with this. 90,000 sellers, 90 or 89,000 of them sell, can I have a load? They act like a carrier, and it's hyper transactional because I hate to say it, 20 years ago, that's what worked. And unfortunately, the proliferation of all of these companies are incestual, right? It's like this talent left to go start this company. Well, guess what? They were a build your own book, transactionally get your foot in the door, sell it, grow it. So they spun off and did that. And then these guys spun off and did that. So it's all from the same tree. And so you have this industry that's largely built off of a playbook that is 20 plus years old. And for us, we're always trying to shake that tree, being like, no. There's totally different ways to do it. Unfortunately, most of the talent just doesn't understand it. So here's what's interesting. When you get into a post-COVID world where it's like freight recession, guess what? No one needs extra capacity. No one needs any of that stuff. No one's equipped then to have a different conversation because the entire industry is built on that. Then fast forward to today, everybody's like, we're good. We're killing it because you know what? Guess what? Selling transactionally is perfect. So it's just really weird to find this spot of an entire industry of hundreds of thousands of sellers basically all playing off the same playbook in most intensive cases, right? Almost everybody's doing the same playbook in case by case by case. And we talk to probably hundreds of companies every month that are yep, we sell very transactionally. We're trying to get in the door. We're trying to get a load. Then we're trying to earn more loads as we go, which may manifest itself into I sell 10,000 customers if I'm a big broker every single year. I lose 9,000 of them because they're all 1 or 2 loads, and I don't move my customer count. I don't grow my revenues, and I'm stuck. And so anyway, I'll get off my soapbox about the system, but my point being is it's really interesting to evaluate talent against that. Those are the ecosystems all of these sellers are living in. Yeah. So it's I'm just going to port over that same ecosystem and then hope that person's actually better or not, right? It's good Lord, we need to change the whole thing.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think, in the last few years, we have seen a shift.
Take a breath. Take a breath.
We have, call your therapist after this. No, we've seen a shift, and we have been, very strongly advising our clients, and, some listen and some don't, but there are so many different angles of this industry too. So, I'm just going to go back to brokerage for simplicity here, but brokerage salespeople sell to shippers, manufacturers, distributors who have freight to move at, its most basic level. There are a lot of other adjacent types of services where a salesperson is selling to the same ICP. That's what I think is the real skill set, whether it's asset or technology, or maybe you're selling an insurance solution, or, there's so many different ways, telematics, to think about. It doesn't just have to be, I want a brokerage rep to be a brokerage rep. Yeah. And some clients are receptive to it because they're yeah, that is actually, their book of business might actually carry over because now you're selling the same person, the same relationship, something different. It doesn't conflict with your non-compete. The biggest barrier for like companies looking outside this industry, even with some of those adjacent type services, is training. And, I think back in the day, companies invested in training. C.H. Robinson was probably the very few companies that actually had a team of people with trainer in their title. And a lot of the larger companies caught on and did that. And now it's like almost non-existent. And so everyone's idea of training is, yeah, I'll hire someone who's selling, Cutco knives door to door if you think they can sell logistics, but they're just going to come in and have to figure it out. And in this day and age, like nobody wants to just figure it out unless there's a connection, like they're being brought into the company by a mentor or family member or someone they really trust. So companies just aren't. There are a lot of good training companies out there and technologies, but I'm just not seeing a lot of companies commit to it, which is just setting someone up to fail, which is why this incestual ecosystem has been around for so long, is because it seems like just an easy catch.
Yeah.
But everyone has an opinion. And a lot of companies are like, I don't want bad habits. So I don't want someone from these brokerages because I once knew one person who said something that I disagreed with that came from that company. And now I don't want to hire anyone who's affiliated with them. So there's a lot of expectation management is a big part of our job and what we do.
So why do people leave in general from your perspective? Now, like you mentioned training before comp. I guess if you're a company sitting here watching this, like what can you do to better attract sales talent?
Yeah, I mean, comp is very obvious, especially like changing comp plans is just a reason people leave very quickly. I think lack of support, if you truly are a salesperson and you've been sold on a position where you are going to have, an account manager or carrier reps or, some sort of like pod model, a lot of people will leave because they're like, I was sold on this job of selling. Now that I'm here, I'm doing a lot more than selling, and I'm now plateauing at this level. I'm capable of selling a lot more, but I don't have capacity because I'm doing all this administrative work or all these follow-ups. I think sometimes it's the service offering and kind of what you guys were hitting on. Like I work for, a brokerage that only sells full truckload flatbed, and it's great. And I have a lot of that business, but we aren't even able to provide a truck for a refrigerated truck or whatnot. Or my client now wants warehousing solutions and my company doesn't offer that. So I'm just referring them out and leaving money on the table. So I think some savvy salespeople are like, wait, I could do more if my company, my clients are using these services. They're just going to other vendors. So what if I work for a company that could be a full service partner? Leadership, politics, those are reasons people leave. Like they're micromanaged or they have no management and feel stuck. And then I do think there's this like dream that like I'm leaving because I want my boss's job and my boss isn't going anywhere. And I think that's like the first thing that's going to really, define, are you a true salesperson who just wants to sell and be hands-on, or is your growth and your path more into management and leadership? There is an incredibly high demand for player coaches. And that could be like, I mean, we could have like a 6-hour debate on that. And you guys would probably have some really interesting viewpoints, like how long can you really be an effective player coach before you start to realize that something's got to give?
Hate player coaches.
It's what everyone wants.
I get it, but it's so ridiculous to be like, hey, wear these 4 hats. I'm purposely setting you up into this situation where it's like, hey, these 4 hats. And really what you care about, all you're really saying there is, I need you to contribute to revenue. That's it. Like,
exactly.
That's it. That's the underlying thing, is like, I need you to pay for yourself and contribute to revenue. And I'm going to hide that into player coach. Just freaking hire me as a salesperson. That's it. Like, sorry. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah. And I think that, go ahead.
How are you taking the like a lot of perspectives around big companies not great to work for? I think we've got like small companies are a little easier to work for. Like how's the marketplace like deciding between like, am I ready for a big company, or should I stick it out with these smaller companies?
The candidates, you mean, like the actual job seekers?
Yeah.
I think it goes both ways. It's like, there is comfort in a bigger organization. Like you said before, you've got the brands, you've got the infrastructure, you probably have resources, but there are a lot of people that want, like, it's like I did that and for 3, 4 years, and now like I'm excited to share that knowledge. I want to get my hands dirty. I want to be part of building, and I want a voice. I think that's probably the one thing where you stay in a big company for a long time, and a lot of people just start to get in this like start to become a cog in the machine, and they feel that. And that's what we try and, talk to our clients about, is like someone from a big brokerage, like they're actually targeting small to mid-sized companies because they've been there, done that, and now they're ready to share and build and contribute, and they kind of got blocked in their last role. So again, some big companies do things right, but I would say that's kind of the perception, and that's something, you have to think about if you're going from a massive giant to, a company that does 50 million a year. You could still make the same amount of money. You could potentially make more money, but it's a different job. It's a little, a little more of the hard work and setting things up. But how awesome is that you can set things up the way they should be set up versus the way it's always been done. I think that's a big thing with, existing huge companies. It's like, what got you here isn't going to get you there. Some companies recognize that, and some are just very stuck in their ways. This is what we do, and this is how we do it.
Yeah.
So it's really comes down to like your personality and like what excites you, and what are you comfortable being comfortable, or are you going to really, thrive when you're challenged, and you start to realize like, wow, I know a lot and I can do a lot. I just never did it because I was observing.
So much of our past in this space has been to like companies that were like good at sales generally meant that they had the largest sales forces. And why I think the revolution of what's coming is you don't need to have the largest sales forces to have a good sales organization. And you don't have to work at a big company to be at one of those locations. So I think smaller companies can do a lot more damage today than they historically had been, because it's not defined by how many people you just have knocking on doors. It's about the quality of the person that you have, and how you amplify them to do more for you.
And are you alluding there to also like technology, or is it truly like just the quality of the person being able to do more, and that kind of reducing what that pool looks like?
I mean, my take on the situation are the people that are strong in sales today are only going to be amplified by technology in now and in the future. And those that don't adopt it, and those that are in the, call it the bottom half of performers, like I don't even know if that group exists anymore. If you're able to get your top 50% to do 1.5 times more, and there's just a lot of noise that goes on inside of sales. Like salespeople still spend a lot of time doing a bunch of dumb stuff that doesn't drive revenue for them or their businesses. And that's the revolution that I believe is coming. And I think that's why it's so important to have like a true talent strategy and all the things that you've laid out around like understanding who you're selling for, what are you selling, like are you bringing a book of business, and ultimately like I've always thought about the right candidate was somebody I could drop in a boardroom that could be self-sustaining by themselves immediately in a boardroom of leaders and being able to handle themselves there. So appreciate that.
Up to like, it's up to the employer to provide that environment and the support system for that person to thrive. I mean, I've never considered myself a salesperson, but I, brought in the bulk of our revenue under CS recruiting. And what's interesting, we were acquired in December, and I'm just about done shedding a lot of my. Yeah, thank you. So we're part of a larger recruiting firm called HireWell now, and I'm shedding a lot of my like CEO and owner founder responsibilities that for years I had to prioritize my employees and the marketing and the finances and the legal, and then I could go and sell. My new role, I'm 100% sales, and I'd say I'm 90% of my day is now selling. I've got 10% left I need to shed or let go of and stop trying to control. But it's amazing to me. I'm like, wait, this is fun to just sell, but it also is opening my eyes. Like, it is, but I need a lot of resources if you want me to do what I'm doing best and stay in this like flow mode in the zone and really be able to hunt and close. Again, like the minute I get distracted, or I'm like, oh, and I need to farm, and I need to create the contract and check the boxes, like now you just lost 3 hours of my day that I could have been selling. So I have a different perspective now on like, yeah, let salespeople sell, and, pad them up so they can do what they
Unshackled.
do. Yeah, exactly. Because you
Unshackled.
guys, the minute you get distracted or you have an administrative task, like you're going to lose me. The minute I have to review a contract, like I need support on my team to do the stuff that is just not my sweet spot. I think that's a really big message with everything we're talking about is like, how do you get people in their sweet spot? And as a individual, what is your sweet spot? And how do you find a job that is 80-90% of your time you are in that sweet spot? Because that's how you're going to be fulfilled and enjoy what you do. You're going to get in that flow mode, and you're just not going to be able to stop because you're enjoying it, not because you're clocking in and out every day.
No doubt.
Awesome.
I'll let James take us home from here. But appreciate the CS recruiting, everything you've done for the industry. I thought it was quite interesting. I took one call my whole career and then the 18, 19 years, and it was from CS recruiting, and it led to something. So always will be a part of my my journey. So appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, Charlie, just let them know if there's a company looking for some sales talent or employees looking to maybe do something different. Tell us a little bit where they find you so we can help you get some more sales.
Yeah. LinkedIn is the easiest spot to find us because, going back to your marketing comment, like I don't want to say we've never spent a dime. Like we have, spent some money on marketing and, having a CRM and doing things the right way. But our LinkedIn brand is completely organic. It's just been putting ourselves out there and really, I think like calling ourselves thought leaders is cheesy, but like we have really taken, like we are sitting in this position where we're talking to thousands of job seekers, hundreds of hiring managers, like what are they saying, and sharing that information with our market. So find us on LinkedIn or our website. We are still CS Recruiting. Now we're just a hire well company, doing more for our clients. So we'd love to connect, and hopefully we can send some people back your way as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. From there, we'll catch you in the next one.
Sounds great.
Thanks for coming.
Guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Charlie.